In this video, we will look at how to do interactive analytics utilizing Apache Spark. So we open a notebook and an example code. This will analyze some wind turbine data and build a regression model, all utilizing interactive Spark session. So the first thing is to create an interactive Spark session, for which we will use a notebook magic. And once that notebook magic is executed, we will be presented with some parameters to establish session with Spark. The URL is auto-generated and it's an internal URL, but it is SSO authenticated with the token. There is an external URL if required. Once we do that, then we can create a session for running our analytics with Spark. So now we have created a session with Spark. Now let's go and check whether that session has been created. So we go to the interactive Spark portion of the UI and we can see that we have just launched a new session. So we will wait for it to get ready. Once it is ready, it will show as idle, and you can of course use the session here itself through this UI to execute code. But interestingly, we will connect to this session from the notebook and we will do some cool graphics and analytics from the notebook utilizing this power of Apache Spark for distributed processing as well as distributed ML training. So let's go back. Now you will notice that all the cells that we are running here are essentially prefaced by a Spark magic, notebook magic, and any cell with that magic gets sent to Spark for execution in an interactive fashion. So let's execute this cell. Once we execute the cells, you will see that those statements have been executed in the interactive Spark session, and you will see them appear. And in some cases, if there is any output to these statements, the output will also appear in this UI. So this is one way to see what is going on and to make sure that the code is actually executed on Spark and not locally within the notebook. So we continue doing that. We get some data set and we want to send it to the Spark cluster. So this is what we are doing it here. Okay, so let's execute. And once that data set is loaded in Spark, you will be able to see that statement has executed on Spark. So you know that it has been Spark who's doing it. And you can check all the historical statements through this UI as well. So let's go back and let's just try to run some command on this Spark data frame. So let's just run it and see that after execution there is some output, and this is text output. So when we go to the Spark interactive session, we should be able to see this command executed as well as the output. And when we look at it, that is what we see. The Spark interactive session has that command that is executed, and of course it's a text output, so I can see the output also in the Spark interactive session. So now let's go ahead and do some further analysis and build some charts. So now we are running some code to build some really cool charts and graphics, and this is where the capabilities from the notebook shine through. And this is one of the reasons why we need to do run such analytics from notebook, even though we use Apache Spark as the compute engine for the actual computation. So as you can see that once we run this, we can see some really cool graphics. Now, when I go into the interactive Spark session and I look at the code, I see that there's just mention of the charts objects, but there's of course no charting done into the interactive Spark session UI. So this is where the notebook interface and the power of notebook comes through to build some of these cool graphics. So we will continue with this kind of analysis. So you will see that we are generating many different kinds of charts. So this is typically the exploratory data analysis phase, and this is where the interactive Spark analysis will be very helpful because you can use the distributed processing in Spark, but you can do the EDA as if you are doing it in a notebook in terms of its graphical capabilities. So this is very helpful to understand the data and uh, to figure out potential features that you may want to use for your models. So after all of this is done, so eventually we will get to the phase where after all this exploratory data analysis is done, we have decided how to build our model. So now we would go and create a gradient boosted tree regressor, and this is also done on Spark. Okay, so now we would form a feature vector and a label vector, and that we will use to train the model. So now we want to go back at some point in time and check how this code is getting run, whether it is again coming to the interactive Spark session. So we just want to check that. And when you go back, you will be able to see that quite a number of statements have come through since we checked last time. And you can see that the model creation or model training part has also come into the Spark session, and we have received an output for it. So now we will get that model and we would apply it, and even the model application or inference will be done utilizing Apache Spark. So we do check some model parameters, etc., as in any standard model building scenario, and we do apply it and chart a graph and compare where the predicted versus actual is for this wind turbine power output. So you can see that using notebooks we can create some cool charts while the actual code gets executed in Spark. Okay, so let's go back one more time into the interactive Spark session and see that all those additional statements have come through. And we see that indeed the model inference was also done utilizing this interactive Spark session. So now let's just try to understand what this session is. So let's just go back and let's go back into the main menu and let's just check what this session was. So you can see that it had one driver and one executor. And of course, these are all Spark on Kubernetes. So this is a containerized Spark cluster, not a physical cluster. And of course, you have Spark History Server available where you can see that during that analytics, we ended up generating huge number of jobs. And all of these jobs were generated transparently from the notebook via the code that we ran. And you can of course check what is the cluster, and again you should see similar driver and executor here. So once your session is done, you can delete this particular interactive session. So you can just go ahead and delete it, and that way once we are done we can free up resources. Again, the benefit of using this is that the output of my analysis, my interactive analytics is already saved in my notebook. So it's already there for me to understand and analyze. So I don't really need a running session for that anymore because my job is done. So that is how we do the interactive analytics in Spark. Thank you.